In this video, I'll show you how we can add, update, delete and read data from a real-time database. So I changed the project a little bit and I added to edit text here and 4 buttons. One is for editing the data, one is for updating, deleting and reading the data. So user can enter the name and email, and if he clicks on add, then we'll add it into this real-time database. So let me go to the main activity. So here you can see that I am accessing the name, this edit text, email, edit text, and each of these buttons, and for each button I added one on-click listener. Okay, so first thing, let's create on add. So once user click on this add button, we'll read the data of name and email and we'll add it to the real-time database. So for that, first thing I need to create one data class. So here I click new and you can see Kotlin class, and you can also select this data class here and give one name of the data class. Suppose it is user data, and this for this class let's get the name, that's of type string, and by default it is an empty string, and also the email, so it's also of type string and by default it's an empty string. Now let's go back to these main activities. Now once I add button will click, then I'm going to create one object of user data, and here I'm going to pass the value that is entered in this name edit text. So name dot text dot to string, and similarly I'm going to pass the email dot text dot to string. Now we already have the reference of this database, so this is the reference myref, so we can use this reference to update the data. So I'm going to create one child, and let's say it is users, and for this user child I'm going to create another child and it will use the user ID. So for now I'm using on this predefined and hard-coded user ID, but for a real world app you will have different user ID for each user. Okay, so we can use this set value method here. Set value, we can pass the user data, this is the user data, and also we can listen for any success or failure. So let's listen for success, add on success listener, and this listener will be called once this data is added successfully. And also we can add one failure listener, add on failure listener, and this will be called once for any fail, so it will give us the exception. And let's print the stack trace if it fails, and if it gets success then let's show one toast this, and user data saved toast dot length, let's use sort and so this will show one toast. Okay, now let me run it. Okay, now it started. Then for the name let's use username, and for the email let's use user email at email.com, and I'm clicking on this add button. Then you can see this toast user data saved, and if I go here then you can see that inside this users it created one more child, that is the ID of the user, and here we have this email and the name. So we can simply pass this object that we have created to this set value method and it will update it as per the object. Okay, now let's see how updating works. So it is a bit similar, like we have to create this user data, so I'm gonna copy it and pasting it here. Then it will create the user data. Then let me copy this one as well. Okay, so here the child will be users and the user ID, so this part is same, and instead of set value we will have to use update children. So we can't pass user data here, so we have to pass on map. for that, let's move back to user data and let's create one method here. So function get map, and it will return one map of string, key, and values of type any. So this map will return what are the values that we want to update. So let's say I want to update only the name, so I have to write it as name to name. That means that if we call this method, then it will return one map that which one this key of name, and the value will be of the name that we have assigned to this object. Okay, and also we have to mark it as exclude. So you can see that it's actually this is imported from Firebase database exclude. So if you don't mark it, then this map also it will be added to this real-time database object. So we have to mark it as exclude because we don't want it to add there. Okay, then let's move back to here, and here we can call this method get map. So it will only update the username because we are only assigning the username here in this get map. So let me change it, user data updated, and let me restart that. Okay, now we have one for this ID. The email is this and the name is username. So let's say I want to change the name to username 2, and if I click on this update, then user data updated, and if I go here, then you can see that username 2 it is changed to this. Now let's see how delete works. Delete is actually pretty easy. Just copy this part and let me paste it here. So we don't have to call this update. We can simply call remove value, and we don't have to pass anything. We are simply getting that value. So delete it. Also let's use write this one as well, read button. So I can copy it and I can paste it here. So instead of remove value, we'll have to call get. So it will read that value, and user data we can print the value here. So you can see that it returns one snapshot of the data that it read. So we can get the value using this 8 dot value. Now let me restart it. Now let's first click on this read. Then you can see that it's showing this data. So user data name is this and email is this. And if I click on this delete, you can see that it's showing this toast as user data deleted, and if I go here, then it is deleted. So let me run it side by side. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna add one email. So add, and it added this email. I'm gonna change the name to name to update. It changes the name. Then I'm gonna click on this read. Then read, it is reading the data, and I'm gonna click on this delete, and it deleted the data. So that's all for now. If you have any question, please drop one comment below, and also I'm sharing this code on GitHub. If you find any trouble, then you can just clone the project from GitHub, and you can try it on your own. Just make sure that you change the JSON file. That is the JSON file. Let's let me go here to this project. Okay, so you have to change the Google service JSON file. So it's different for our project, and also it will be different for your project.